Johannes Kepler is often celebrated as the cosmic detective of the heavens, a man whose imagination and sharp mind turned the night sky into a vast, glittering puzzle full of invisible clues just waiting for someone clever enough to uncover them, and whose determination made the universe itself feel like a giant riddle box full of secret treasures that only he could solve. He was born in 1571 in the small town of Wilderstadt in Germany, a place where the cobbled streets curled like ribbons, the houses leaned toward each other as if sharing whispered secrets, and morning fog sometimes hung so thick it made the buildings look like they were floating on clouds, giving the whole town a magical, otherworldly feeling, perfect for a child with a mind that wandered among the stars. As a little boy, Kepler wandered the hills and fields with the energy of a puppy chasing butterflies, notebook and stick in hand, like a tiny wizard on an adventure, sketching the shapes of clouds, the bends of trees, the shadows cast by sunlight, and imagining that each flicker of light, twist of wind, or ripple in a stream was a secret message from the universe just for him. He loved to stare at the night sky for hours, tracing the movements of the moon, planets, and twinkling stars with eyes wide open and sparkling with curiosity, convinced that each twinkle was whispering a story, a joke, or a puzzle that only he could understand, as if the stars themselves were playing hide-and-seek with anyone patient enough to notice. Kepler's imagination raced faster than the fastest horse in town. He saw patterns in the chaos of the heavens that no one else could see, as if planets were performing secret dances choreographed just for him, planets swinging closer to the sun like dancers, spinning in a grand celestial ballroom, then gliding away like graceful ice skaters on invisible rinks. His teachers were sometimes baffled because while other children spent their days memorizing Latin or copying arithmetic problems, Kepler's mind was busy drawing imaginary planetary orbits, calculating distances with scribbles that looked like spaghetti noodles at first glance, and pondering how celestial bodies moved to the rhythm of some hidden cosmic music. He loved mathematics the way others loved chocolate or comic books, scribbling endless calculations, diagrams, and charts, with wild energy, imagining that numbers were the secret language God had used to write the universe, and that if he could only figure out the code, he could read the story of creation itself. Even as a boy, he asked so many questions that neighbors would stop and blink, muttering, "What is he thinking about now?" As Kepler's mind soared far above the town, among stars that seemed to wink down at him encouragement, almost as if the universe itself had recognized a fellow adventurer. When he grew older, he studied at the University of Tübingen, where professors noticed that Kepler's curiosity wasn't just deep, it was relentless, like a dog that refuses to let a bone go or a squirrel obsessed with counting every acorn in the forest, except in Kepler's case the acorns were planets and the forest was the night sky. He became an astronomer for the court of the Holy Roman Emperor, a position that put him in the middle of the grand puzzle of planetary motion, staring at years of ancient observations and trying to make sense of patterns that had confounded generations of scientists before him, while muttering calculations under his breath and pacing around like a wizard performing invisible rituals. Kepler inherited the meticulous notes of Tycho Brahe, a legendary astronomer who had charted the heavens with almost magical precision, and he set to work like a detective examining a treasure trove of cosmic clues, sometimes muttering to himself, sometimes laughing at the thought that the planets might be deliberately trying to confuse him, or that they had their own tiny sense of humor. He pored over the data for years, scribbling charts, drawing diagrams, measuring angles, pacing around rooms filled with stacks of papers that looked like leaning towers of spaghetti, and sometimes muttering about invisible forces as if the planets themselves were gossiping about each other, and he was the only one who could eavesdrop. In 1609, his patience and genius paid off when he discovered the first two of his famous laws. Planets didn't travel in perfect circles as everyone had assumed, but in ellipses, swooping closer to the sun and then swinging farther away, moving faster when they were near the sun and slower when they were far, as if obeying the invisible hand of some cosmic conductor orchestrating a grand dance. He realized that the universe was far more elegant than anyone had imagined, with invisible threads pulling planets along paths that looked like roller coasters for giants, perfectly predictable if only you had the eyes and the courage to look. And he often chuckled at the thought that the planets might be enjoying their secret loops and spins just to amuse themselves. Kepler's third law, published in 1619, revealed that the time a planet takes to orbit the sun is connected to its distance from the sun, as if the planets were all dancing to the same cosmic rhythm, each with its own beat, yet all harmonizing in a grand celestial symphony that no orchestra on Earth could ever replicate. He loved to imagine the planets as tiny musicians in a cosmic orchestra, each one playing its own instrument, some twirling in fast crescendos near the sun, others gliding slowly along the outer edges. And he grinned at the thought that he was perhaps the only person in the world who could hear their silent music, sometimes even tapping his foot along to invisible rhythms while scribbling his calculations. Kepler's work was not just about numbers. It was about wonder, imagination, and joy, as if he could see the mind of God in the swirl of the Milky Way, the delicate glitter of a distant star, or the graceful dance of a comet. He often joked to himself that perhaps God had left a trail of cosmic riddles just to see if clever humans could figure them out, or maybe even to play a gentle prank on any scientist bold enough to look up at the sky. He faced challenges too, from financial struggles to religious turmoil, from the loss of loved ones to the constant pressure of proving his unorthodox ideas, yet he never lost his sense of wonder. He would sometimes wander the streets of Prague at night, notebook in hand, sketching invisible planetary trails in the air, muttering ideas that might have sounded like nonsense to anyone else while moonlight reflected off his papers in tiny magical sparkles. Kepler also had a playful side. He imagined that the moon might have tiny creatures observing Earth, or that the planets whispered secrets to each other in a language of light and motion, little cosmic jokes that only the universe could understand. He chuckled at the thought, startling an occasional night watchman, and sometimes told colleagues that he suspected the planets enjoyed confusing humans just to see who could solve the riddle first. He loved to mix imagination with careful observation, insisting that numbers and patterns could tell the truth if you listened closely. He spent endless nights measuring angles, plotting orbits, and testing his theories with a devotion that could make even the most focused modern scientist feel sleepy, all while imagining the planets giggling at his obsession. Kepler's discoveries eventually laid the foundation for Isaac Newton's laws of motion and gravity, transforming the way humans understood the cosmos forever, and proving that patient observation, careful thought, and fearless imagination could uncover universal truths hidden in plain sight, like treasure waiting in the stars. He inspired generations of astronomers, mathematicians, and dreamers, showing that curiosity, persistence, and a willingness to look beyond the obvious could reveal the hidden music and motion of the universe. And he often reminded students that the universe is full of secret dances, invisible trails, and patterns just waiting for playful minds to notice. Even today, when we point a telescope at the sky, watch the planets glide silently along their orbits, or trace a comet's tail, we are following the trails of Kepler's mind, listening to the silent music he first imagined and marveling at the elegance he uncovered in a universe that seems to love both order and mischief. Kepler remained endlessly curious to the very end, sometimes sketching imaginary planets no one had ever seen, imagining solar systems as grand playgrounds where invisible forces performed ballets, and laughing quietly at the thought that perhaps even the stars themselves appreciated a good cosmic joke. He loved telling young students that mathematics was a magic wand for understanding the universe, and that curiosity was the key to unlocking its secrets, often sprinkling his lectures with playful examples, jokes about planets, and diagrams that seemed almost alive with motion, as if the heavens themselves were putting on a show just for them. Johannes Kepler remains a shining example that one curious, imaginative, and slightly eccentric mind can uncover the elegant choreography of the cosmos, turning starlight into a story that continues to inspire and delight children and adults alike, showing that the universe is not just a place to look at but a story to read, a puzzle to solve, and a playground to explore with wonder in your heart. imagination in your mind, and a